J.R.R. Tolkien's Hobbit, Chapter 1, Part 5. Somebody was banging with a stick. Bilbo rushed along the passage very angrily, altogether bewildered and bewildered. This was the most awkward Wednesday he ever remembered. He pulled open the door with a jerk, and they all fell in, one on top of the another. More dwarfs, four more, and there was Gandalf behind, leaning on his staff and laughing. He had made quite a dent on a beautiful door. He had also, by the way, knocked out a secret mark that he had put there the morning before. Carefully, carefully, he said. It is not like you, Bilbo, to keep friends waiting on the mat. And then open the door like a popgun. Let me introduce Bifur, Bofur, Bomber, and especially Thorin. At your service, said Bifur, Bofur, and Bomber, standing in a row. Then they hung up two yellow hoods and a pale green one, and also a sky blue one with a long silver tassel. This last belonged to Thorin, an enormously important dwarf. In fact, no other than the great Thorin Oakenshield himself, who was not at all pleased at the falling flat on Bilbo's back with Bifur, Bofur, and Bomber on top of him. For one thing, Bomber was immensely fat and heavy. Thorin indeed was very haughty and said nothing about service. But poor Mr. Baggins said he was sorry so many times that at last he grunted, "Pray don't mention it," and stopped frowning. "Now we are all here," said Gandalf, looking at the row of 13 hoods, the best detachable party boots, and his own hat hanging on the pegs. "Quite a merry gathering. I hope there is something left for the latecomers to eat and drink. What's that? Tea? No, thank you. A little red wine, I think, for me." "And for me," said Thorin. "And raspberry jam and apple tart," said Bifur. "The mince pies and cheese," said Bofur. "And pork pie and salad," said Bomber. "And more cakes and ale and coffee, if you don't mind," called the other dwarfs through the door. "Put on a few eggs, there is a good Put on a few eggs, there is a good fellow," Gandalf called after him, as the hobbits stumped off to the pantries. "And just bring out the cold chicken and pickles." "Seems to know as much about the inside of my larders as I do myself," thought Mr. Baggins, who was feeling positively flummoxed and was beginning to wonder where most wretched adventure had not come right into his house. By the time he had got all the bottles and dishes and knives and forks and glasses and plates and spoons and things piled up on big tray, he was getting very hot and red in his face and annoyed. "Confiscate and bebother these dwarfs," he said aloud. "Why don't they come and lend a hand?" Lo and behold, there stood Balin and Dwalin at the door of kitchen, and Philly and Killy behind them. And before he could say knife, they had whisked the tray and couple of small tables into the parlor and set out everything afresh. Gandalf sat at the head of the party with the 13 dwarfs all around, and Bilbo sat on the stool at the fireside, nibbling at a biscuit. His appetite was quite taken away, and trying to look as if this was all perfectly ordinary and not in the least an adventure. The dwarfs ate and talked, and time got on. At last, they pushed their chairs back, and Bilbo made a move to collect the plates and glasses. "I suppose you will all stay for supper," he said in his politest, unpressing tones. "Of course," said Thorin, "and after. We shall not get through the business till late. and we must have some music first. Now clear up. Thereupon the 12 dwarfs, not Thorin, he was too important, and stayed talking to Gandalf, jumped to their feet and made tall piles of all the things. Off they went, not waiting for trays, balancing columns of plates, each with a bottle on the top, with one hand, while the hobbit ran after them, almost squeaking with fright. Please be careful, please don't trouble. I can manage. But the dwarfs only started to sing. Chip the glasses and crack the plates, blunt the knives and bend the forks. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates. Smash the bottles and burn the corks. Cut the cloth and trade the fat. Pour the milk on the pantry floor. Leave the bones on the bedroom mat. Splash the wine on every door. Dump the crocks in boiling bowl. Pound them up with a humping pole. And when you are finished, if any are whole, send them down the hall to roll. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates. So carefully with his plates. Okay, I think that's it for this one.